back and better than ever. It's been a little while, however, we're ready to get back to what we do best, and that's talking wrestling. Welcome to Collar and Elbow Wrestling Podcast, where we bring you an unmatched love of professional wrestling. I am Kenny Oak, and with me as always to talk about wrestling is Chris Harris. And today, we're doing our patented and proven pay-per review, where we dig deep into the archives to bring you a fresh perspective on an older pay-per-view. And today, we return to where it all began again. Yes, WrestleMania 20 in New York City. Chris, I know you're very excited about this one. As for me, I wasn't all that excited when you brought it up, but I have to admit some of these matches may have swayed my opinion a little bit.
Yeah, Bub, it's real good to be back here. We've missed a little bit of time in here, but this is a good one to get us back into the rhythm. I wasn't all excited about doing it either, but there was some stuff in here that I really thought that we could talk about that would kind of showcase the good stuff that did go on here at WrestleMania 20.
Yeah, and there was a lot of good that came out of this pay-per-view. You see the rise of John Cena, and he was super over during this time. His Doctor of Thugonomics gimmick was over big time with the crowd. And, you saw a little bit of changing of the guard with some of the title matches. And overall, I wasn't that excited going into it, but afterwards, I have to say that I've gained a large appreciation for WrestleMania 20 as a whole.
Yeah, this one in some ways it did underwhelm a bit, but I mean, there's a lot to the card. I mean, there's several people. This card is packed full of people, as they started to do in
it's
WrestleMania
5 hours,
since then.
It's almost 5 hours long.
Yeah, it's really long, and it's not always the greatest thing to have a 5 hour long pay-per-view, but they definitely tried to fill this one full of everyone, get everyone a little bit of showcase out there, and I don't mind that. I like giving people the chance to get out there and at least be at WrestleMania, and the matches weren't all that great. I mean, we have people like the La Resistance who at least got an appearance.
Oh, I'm glad you brought them in.
But they're in here, they're on the card, and they got to partake in a match at least. So there's good.
They were actually a big part of that match. They spent most of the time of that match in the ring, so that was very interesting to see. And it's good to see these kind of lower tier teams and lower tier workers get a lot of airtime, especially at a WrestleMania.
Right, and this one had a little bit of everything. There's good emotion in this one that we get to in the end. There's really good matches in the middle. We're going to talk about Jericho and Christian. There's some typical tag team stuff, heel and face stuff. This one had it all. A little bit underwhelming for what WrestleMania should have been, especially for a number 20 where it all began again as the motto that was used. But in general, I'm still glad we picked this one to get through because there's some good stuff to talk about.
All right, well, let's go ahead and just jump right into it. WrestleMania 20, it begins with a whole lot of pomp and circumstance, which you really expect. It's 20 years. It's the 20th year anniversary. It's where it all begins again. So they're back in New York City, and they really did a good job of, actually a great job of building the pay-per-view up as being a big deal, which they try to do every year with WrestleMania, but with, these anniversary ones like the 20 and even the 30, even the 25, they do a really good job building those up to be even more special. Now, I think all in all, like I mentioned earlier, it's 5 hours long. It lasted way too long, but that's something we'll get into a little later. I think they did a good job of later on pulling the fans back into it.
Yeah, they needed to showcase this one well to build it up because you want these highlight ones like 20 and 25 and 30, you want them to be built up pretty big. And they tried to do that with having a really big card. And some of it was good, some of it was bad. But in general, it's still a positive WrestleMania. It wasn't trash by any means. There's some good stuff in here. And it starts off with popping the crowd a little bit with John Cena, who was in the middle of his rise, his push, and put him up against a guy like The Big Show to help get him over here for the U.S. title in this match.
Yeah, and this was definitely your standard John Cena match for the time, and really, I feel like it's his standard match throughout his whole career, where he spends most of the time getting beat up by Big Show, only to come back and win.
Right, the Big Show was a big heel at the time, just using his weight to throw around on people, and going into this, you could easily read that Cena was going to be put over here by the Big Show at WrestleMania. He wasn't going to lose again as he had been in the previous months. So this one was a little bit easy to read, but the match was still not bad at all.
No, it definitely wasn't a bad match, and the crowd. What made it a pretty decent match was that the crowd was really into it. Cena cut a pretty funny promo on the Big Show to start it up, and the crowd ate it up big time. And like I said, this was at the height of his Doctor of Thugonomics stage, which I enjoyed John Cena at the time. They gave him the mic, really told him to say whatever he wanted to say, and he was really funny. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like the thug version of Cena. He could go out there and
Word life.
He could word life. He could go out there and talk pretty well. He's always been able to run a good promo, and back then he was just kind of just given free reign to go out there and say some stuff, and he did it pretty well.
Yeah, word life, basic thugonomics. He went out there and won the match by hitting his FU. I mean, he's spent the whole match getting beat up, but then had his moment at the end where he comes back, hits the FU, show kicks out, then he tries to grab his chain, and the crowd was eating that up. He throws it so the ref can go get it, and pulls out his word life knucks, and just whops he gives the Big Show 2 FUs like that.
He does.
He's a strong dude.
Yeah.
John Cena does not get the credit he deserves for being as strong as he is.
No, and we always talk about this. We never really appreciated Cena for as good as he was even back then, even though you could say we both liked him, but the dude was strong. He was super talented. He could cut a promo. He never had the greatest moveset, which has been argued a lot, but to pick up a guy, 450 pounds like the Big Show was, to hit him twice with it, it was a pretty good moment and a good match in the end.
Yeah, so all in all, I thought it was a great match to start the pay-per-view on. Like you said, get the crowd to pop a little bit, showcase their rising star in Cena, and after the match, Michael Cole just goes absolutely insane trying to put John Cena over, which he then did for the next 13 years.
Yeah, and Cole didn't need to get into it like he did, but Cena was going to be over regardless. But you got to really make sure, you got to drive it home. You got to make sure he's put over strong, and he was.
Yeah, make him look strong.
Yeah, super strong.
But yeah, good match. And then after this, after the match, it goes to the backstage, where there were a lot of backstage segments, and I think they did that mostly just to kind of fill that time, because I probably what it was, they allotted, okay, we're gonna buy 5 hours of pay-per-view time. Shit, we don't have enough matches for this. We need quite a bit of filler.
Right.
And there was a whole lot of filler for this pay-per-view. First is the Coachman. Jonathan Coachman's walking in the back, getting high-fived by people, talking to people, and then Bischoff, he goes into Bischoff's office, and that's where Bischoff says he wants Coach to go find the Undertaker. They're hearing strange noises, and there was a very young John Morrison in Eric Bischoff's office wearing a trench coat. I don't know why he was wearing a trench coat.
And the Coach makes another appearance. That's where I put him down here in my notes, as he comes back after the next match, and that vignette continues with the Coach. That's right.
Yeah, and we'll get to that later on. But like you said, Evolution has their promo to get ready for the next match with Foley. And it's the same. They're in front of the same staircase that Randy Orton, who was the Legend Killer at the time, kicked Mick Foley down.
Yeah, they changed camera angles and locations for this vignette, I think 3 or 4 times in the taping of this. I didn't really necessarily like that. You could just tell they were just trying to drag it out a little bit longer, and I didn't care for the stuff that they were saying. It really wasn't necessary, I think, because the match was built enough, but it was them trying to fill time, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And throughout the entire show, there was a ton of that. But, I mean, there was a lot of filler, but at least the filler led to something.
Right.
There was a point to each thing. And so after these vignettes, we've got our next match, which is for the World Tag Team Championships, which was on Raw at the time. And you mentioned La Resistance. And they went up against Garrison Cade, who later became Lance Cade, and Mark Jindrak versus the Dudleys versus the champions at the time, Booker T and RVD. And what did you think about this match? I thought it was a pretty fun match.
I mean, I thought it was a little bit messy at times, as kind of I expected. I didn't think that La Resistance and Jindrak and Cade would work a good match with these guys. Most of the match, a lot of it was Booker T and RVD in the ring putting people down. And you see the Dudleys get their stabs in a little bit. I didn't think it ever really developed into anything I liked, because I didn't necessarily aside from Booker and RVD, I never had a care for much of these guys as workers in the ring. The Dudleys can be loved and hated for what they do, but they're not the greatest technicians. But in general, I thought it was okay at best, I guess.
Yeah, and this was the Dudleys had just recently gotten back together after both of them had failed singles attempts. Booker T spent most of the match in the ring, either beating up or getting beat up by the other teams. Mostly La Resistance, which was surprising to me. But one of the notes that really I had to bring up is that to this day, I still believe Booker T has one of the best spine busters in all of wrestling.
I like his spine buster. I like his version of it.
Yeah. And he was definitely someone who did not get the respect he deserved in WWE. He was a fantastic wrestler, but he was mostly just relegated to tag team work. He had his tag team with RVD, tag teamed with Goldust. Most of the time he was spent as a tag team wrestler when really he, in my opinion, could have easily been a main event singles guy at the time.
Yeah, he lost a lot of his momentum when he came over from when WCW failed, when he was the World Heavyweight Champion. He, got into some stuff with Steve Austin for a bit, but then after that he really slowly started to fade. Got into The Rock a little bit. The Rock beat him for the title at SummerSlam, but then he really does do a lot of mid-card work and a lot of tag team work, which I think held him back a little bit.
Yeah, and because really, when you're put in tag teams constantly like that, it makes you feel like that's all you really are as a tag team guy. You can't really make it on your own as a singles guy. And, he proves later on that, yes, I can be a singles guy. I can be a main event player. But unfortunately, for a majority of his WWE career, he was spent relegated as a tag team guy. Same with RVD also. RVD was in a lot of tag teams. But another thing I wanted to bring up is that RVD has the most athletic-looking frog splash ever. And I just love how he hits it and he sells his own pain. Like he did the frog splash to himself almost.
Right. He gets the most air you'll see. He just jumps as high as humanly possible, and then he comes down and he's the one hurt. But he still gets the pin though. Still gets the pin like he does here in this match with a super big frog splash, but then he just ends up in death.
Yeah. It takes him like 10 seconds to get the pin because he's rolling around on the ground, kicking his feet.
You gotta sell it though.
Yeah. And does he? But Conway takes the pin, so La Resistance gets beat, and Booker T and RVD retain the title, which it was the right thing to do. Both of the tag team matches were the exact same, and you definitely there wasn't enough build to it to think that the champs were going to lose the titles, and the champs were just too hot to take the titles off in a match like this.
Yeah, especially if you're doing a fatal 4-way tag where you're putting 8 people in the ring. 2 lower mid-card teams like Cade and Jindrak and La Resistance, they're not going to get a title change here, and the Dudleys really weren't in a position to take it back. So it was a good finish.
And then after this match, we get a second backstage vignette, whatever you want to call it, with Coach hot on the tail of the Undertaker, still trying to find Undertaker, hearing weird noises, and this is when he runs into Mean Gene and Bobby Heenan, getting it on with Moolah and Mae Young.
Yeah, once again, this is a little vignette to, get Bobby Heenan on the screen, get Mean Gene on the screen, because they're guys you want to have making appearances like this at WrestleManias, and why not have Moolah and Mae Young come out? It was a weird thing that they were, doing weird naughty stuff in the closet, and there was lipstick everywhere, and I don't know. It was a good time filler because I got a giggle out of it, and it was good to see Bobby Heenan, but still gross.
Yeah, and Bobby Heenan was on the downslope health-wise at this time, so he definitely wasn't the same. But like you said, it was good to see him. He's definitely one of the best on the mic as a play-by-play, a color commentator that the WWE and wrestling as a whole ever had. Because he was fantastic in WCW also.
Yeah, I really liked hearing him. He always kept it entertaining. He was definitely part of the golden era for commentating back when wrestling was more of a show with Hogan just doing nonsense. So his voice is always classic to hear on some of those older shows.
Yeah, and he was definitely the consummate heel. You know, he always played a really good heel commentator.
Always had some negative stuff to say.
Yeah, JBL's no Heenan. I think that's what we're missing. Is
ball game. Yeah. Sorry, had a moment there.
Are you okay? Did you black out?
Yeah, John Cena kicked out, but I still said ball game.
Big match, John. Wait, I'm a heel. Oh,
I don't
care. It's John Cena. Got to make him strong.
Yeah. Enough of that.
Okay. Anyway, after that backstage segment, we got the lead-in, the recap of the Christian and Jericho feud, and this was I remember this feud vividly because this was at the height of my wrestling fandom. Because I remember Christian and Chris Jericho had a bet of who was going to get lucky first, and then they bet $1 Canadian, and then Jericho falls in love with Trish, and then Trish finds out. It's just a typical soap opera. When people say, "Oh, wrestling is just soap opera for men," this is a prime example of that right there.
Right. This is Trish was very much used as an object in this storyline, just to have something to fight over as they get into this love triangle type segment, and that's something we really don't see much anymore, because the female wrestling world is so much bigger, and we don't have to look down on women as objects, because WWE would paint them as objects back then, and sure, we all loved it because she was hot, but not so much now.
Yeah, I bet Vince still. I bet he just sits in the back going, "Oh, why do they want to wrestle? Why don't they just want to go out there and see?" That's why I like Lana. She just goes out there and she doesn't ask to wrestle.
Just go out there and look hot.
That's me as Vince. Yeah, just I know you're not Russian, but talking a Russian accent, that's sexy.
Yeah, that'll work.
But make sure you forget that you're Russian sometimes.
And speak super clear English.
God, I love Rusev though.
No, he's super over. I wish.
Okay, getting off topic.
Oh, yeah, sorry, we strayed there. But this match, Jericho and Christian. So why not use Chris Jericho at the peak of his career to put somebody over, right? And that's what Christian got here at WrestleMania. I thought it was a pretty good match. It wasn't necessarily the match of the card, but this one was pretty good to watch. You could sit there and watch all of it. You see Christian do some good heel tactics. There's some pretty good spots off the top rope, as you'd expect from two guys like this. All in all, I really liked watching it.
Yeah, this was another instance where both guys were definitely underutilized as singles competitors for the longest time. Jericho got his title run, but honestly, it was just a transition to get to Triple H at WrestleMania. And Christian did get his one main event run, but that was much later, and that's only because Edge had to retire. So.
And I think Christian was given that title run similar to how Mark Henry was given his title run, because you work long enough for the business and you're a good enough guy, they're going to give you something. So they gave him the world title as just an offering for doing so much work, I think.
Yeah, and he held it for a month, dropped it to Randy, had a couple matches with him, but all in all, he had a pretty forgettable singles career. Now, he did some good work in TNA as Christian Cage.
He went off to TNA and got a pretty good run there, because he was good enough to work as a singles guy, but there's a lot of talent when he was trying to be a singles guy in the WWE. Yeah,
it's hard to get over when you've got Triple H, John Cena, Edge,
Randy
all those guys
that
were running the main event. Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to justify a push when you have such high quality guys in the main event. And even at this time, Jericho had spent time in the main event, but you couldn't justify putting the title on him when you had, Triple H and Shawn Michaels putting on the matches that they were putting on for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, he was just in there at an unfortunate time, and pretty good singles guy, all in all, but I wish he would just been there at a different time. He could have been something better. But he's a great tag team guy, obviously. He's one of the best ever in that aspect, but not as a singles
absolutely.
guy.
And as you said, this was a very good match. There was some good storytelling in there, with Y2J selling the knee injury during the match, and Christian spent a good part of the time going after the knee. In my opinion, the ending didn't suit a WrestleMania match. I thought that's more of an ending for like a roadblock or a backlash kind of thing. WrestleMania is more about decisive victories, and to have Trish come out, accidentally hit Jericho, Christian rolls him up for the 1-2-3. I didn't like it. To me, it spoiled what was a pretty good match.
Right, the ending it could have been done so much better, and you said it right on. This could have been done at like the month before's pay-per-view as like a dirty heel win for Christian, and you take that one, you move into a WrestleMania, and the match should end decisively. It's a good way to say it, but I didn't like the ending in general. I didn't think the Trish part was necessary at all. Of course, she'd come out to the ring as it was super expected as always, and she'd get involved in the match, and I don't know, could have been better. Match before that, it was pretty good though.
Yeah, and that's something that WWE does a whole lot, is they overbook, and this was a clear case of overbooking. They had to send Trish down there because she was part of this angle.
Yeah,
and she cost Jericho the match. Jericho was trying to, or she was trying to apologize to Jericho. She actually starts slapping him. Christian comes in and hits him with the unprettier, and turns out Christian and Trish were working together the whole time, apparently.
Yeah, they pulled the wool over our eyes.
Where did this come? Like, who? They got us. Oh, you got me, Vince.
And then we move on from storyline from there. So I don't know what it was really for, but
it really died after that.
Yeah.
And then all right, so after this match, we go backstage once again, and it's Lillian Garcia interviewing Mick Foley, and now Mick Foley, he went away. He was gone for 4 years. This was his first match in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just have to say this. Unlike Shawn Michaels, Mick Foley did not age well after being away for 4 years.
Right. Nope.
Considering
all the hell he'd been through in previous matches, I don't think anybody really expected him to come back and be the greatest thing ever by any means. He'd been through way too much hell in his life. But he still had enough to work around the ring, but not like we had seen before.
Yeah, he definitely was a lot slower. He wasn't as crisp, but his body was put through a whole lot. It was, he was a beaten, broken man. So, yeah, so Lillian's catching up with Mick Foley. The Rock shows up. Anytime Rock plus microphone equals absolute gold. And only The Rock can pull off, this promo that he does. And only he can say to a woman, and he could probably get away with saying this now, the buffet is closed. He told Lillian that the buffet was closed, which I thought was the best line of the entire promo.
Yeah, Rock was still obviously in great shape. He'd done, I think, 2 movies at this point, so he was still, he was Hollywood, but he was still able to come back and put on good work in the ring, and his promos are never bad. Anything he says is just gold, man.
Yeah, and he exudes charisma. He's just, you put a mic in front of him, like you could just roll him out of bed, put a mic in front of him, and he'll cut 3 times the promo that, these people nowadays can cut.
Right. Which
was why he was such a big star, and he's such a huge star now.
Mm-hmm. He was definitely for big things.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention is that I loved the Evolution theme song.
Evolution is a mystery.
Yes.
It was good. It was real good.
Oh, it was so good. May Lemmy rest in peace.
Yeah, and to speak of Evolution, though, this was in the middle of their rise as a group, which led to greatness individually, not for Flair, of course, because he was well past his prime, but he was still in the ring, still trying to jump off the top turnbuckle. It's never worked, but...
I think it was Jerry Lawler that mentioned that. It's never
Jerry
worked, Rick. Don't do it.
For the 284th time, this move has not worked. But it's a great spot that he sets up for everyone. Orton was IC champ at the time, getting a lot of run. Yes. You knew Batista was going to be big stuff too. I liked having him in a group like this because it works once you separate them, just like the Shield worked after you separated them. This is a good match for them to go up against two good guys, Hall of Fame guys. At a big WrestleMania event like this to help get him over even more.
Yeah, and this was definitely the build up to this was definitely focused on Randy Orton and Mick Foley, because at the time Randy Orton was the Legend Killer.
Right.
He had targeted Mick Foley, And so a lot of this was just trying to put, Evolution over, put over Randy Orton for sure. And I don't think at this point they knew exactly what they had in Batista. But yeah, he definitely became a huge star
Right,
later
there's
on.
a reason for that. They never let him really talk a whole bunch. You saw that vignette in the back was all Randy Orton talking. So
Yeah.
Batista had a bit more to grow, but just the way he moved in the ring, his move set, how big he was, you knew there was going to be something of him. I'm sure they didn't know exactly that he'd turn into one of the bigger stars, but they knew they were onto something with all of them.
Absolutely. And personally, I preferred Batista over Randy Orton in the end anyway. Uh,
Right.
he's another one of those people that went to Hollywood, and is becoming a bigger star now than he was before.
Right, he's getting bigger now as he's getting older. He's getting pretty good roles, and he's made some hell of success for himself.
Which is always good to see. I love when these wrestling guys, they put their bodies on the line. They put in all the hard work, years and years of traveling and wrestling every night, and they get rewarded. People like The Rock and Batista, and there's others in history that have gone on to make something of themselves outside of the wrestling world, and it's always good to see that.
Sometimes it's not the best to see them come back and win the Royal Rumble, but it's usually used for a good
Bautista.
purpose because that had a good ending and leading up to WrestleMania, but maybe he should have just stayed gone at that point. But that's another subject in itself. But
Yeah, I could talk about that Royal Rumble and how they, maybe should have pulled the trigger on Roman Reigns then, but we'll get that's something we'll talk about on another day. But this was definitely a sloppy match. It wasn't, with just the amount of star power and having 5 Hall of Famers in this match. You'd expect a little more crisp, clean wrestling, but Mick Foley had been gone for a while. The Rock was no longer a full-time wrestler, so it was a bit sloppy. But the nostalgia alone helps add a little bit to the match, make it a little better than it should have been, really.
yeah, it was full of
And
nostalgia, that's for sure. The
yeah,
Rock wasn't crisp anymore, as like you said. Flair had not been crisp for a long time. The other two were both Orton and Batista. They look good, but Mick and The Rock, they weren't in there to put on a technical match. That's not what they were there for. They were there to draw for WrestleMania, which they did. They both got big pops when they came out, and they were there to just put on a mid-level match with a bunch of other kids that were supposed to be getting a good push. That was the goal of this, and it worked out.
oh yeah, it did. And you expect the baby faces to get the win here, but like with every pay-per-view at this time, Evolution came out on top. Evolution was the quintessential, they were the brand. You always expect that Evolution was going to come out on top just by how they were booked. And they came out on top here, but the New York crowd did wonders. They gave Mick Foley a standing ovation after this. Which was really good to see. Mick being from New York,
Right.
It was really good for him to get that acknowledgement from the crowd.
Yeah, and I thought that Evolution winning was better than what The Rock and Mick would have done with winning. There wouldn't have been anywhere to go with that. Evolution kind of needed the push, and I like that they used two guys like this. Although I hate to see The Rock lose. I mean, he's my dude. But to have him get pushed like this at a major WrestleMania, being the 20th, and then by two guys like this, I think it was better than had it gone the other way.
I didn't really think about it like that, and you bring up a great point. That was really the way to go. You have your young guys like Randy Orton and Batista. You want them to win. You don't want to lose their momentum. And I wish that's something that they did more now.
Mm-hmm.
You have young guys that you're pushing. You don't, this 50-50 booking. You're killing people's momentum. They did a really good job with Evolution, building up their momentum and keeping their momentum going until they, did split. And their splits were great. Other than Orton, he didn't really have a great split from Evolution, not like Batista. But yeah, you're right. Evolution was the right choice. I didn't really think about it like that.
And this kind of started a little bit of what we see now, because the match ends with JR screaming RKO out of nowhere when Randy Orton hits the RKO literally out of nowhere on Mick Foley, and they get this kind of quick, unexpected win that, you know, it didn't have any momentum to it. It just came out of nowhere and kind of caught everyone by surprise. And Mick Foley even rolls up right after the pin and looks shocked because he wasn't ready for it. And that's something we see to this day, them using Randy Orton's finisher out of nowhere and that phrase and him doing it quick. This was a good way to start it.
Yeah, no, and the RKO is one of my favorite finishing moves. Much like the Diamond Cutter was in WCW, RKO, in my opinion, is even better because of the way Randy Orton does it, and he does do it out of nowhere. Just recently on that SmackDown, whenever Randy Orton turned on Kane and hit him with that RKO to join the Wyatt family, you know, I love it. I just love how he does his finishing move. It's great.
And he's great in general. He'll be a Hall of Fame guy because he's been able to sustain a pretty solid career since then, since before this match, actually, even up until now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, all the world titles he's won. Like I said, all 5 of these people are Hall of Famers. So, you know, you had a lot of star power in this match.
Yeah, the match was a little bit underwhelming, but this is kind of what we expected, I think.
Exactly, and you're right on that. And then after this match, we go backstage to probably the best backstage vignette of the entire night. And that was when Eddie Guerrero went backstage, went into the locker room to meet up with Chris Benoit. And he gives Benoit an inspirational speech, you know, in which, you know, Benoit, you know, replies, you know, this is my night. You know, I'm doing this tonight. You know, 18 years, you know, has come down to this.
Yeah.
You know, it was a great promo from both of them. Eddie's like, you know, this is what I've been waiting for. This is the Wolverine I've been looking for.
That was so great to see because you knew how close those guys were, and they've been close for so long. And for them to both be at a WrestleMania, this was a really good, especially guys that followed those two throughout their career. This was great to see.
Yeah, and both of these guys had, you know, wrestled each other around the world. They wrestled each other in Japan, in Mexico, in WCW, and WWE, and you know, it was good for the WWE to kind of pull back the curtain on, you know, these both of their past and let you know, like, hey, these guys are friends. You know, they've known each other for so long. You know, there is a bond between these two,
a real life
which
bond.
made the ending to this pay-per-view that much better. And we'll get to that, you know, afterwards. But yeah, this was a great backstage promo.
And I think after this leads to the Hall of Fame induction. Is that right? Is that what was up next?
Yes, I believe so. Did the Hall of Fame
With Gene
because
Okerlund.
Yeah, Mean Gene. I'm not a big fan of them parading out everyone in the middle of the pay-per-view. It kind of takes away from the momentum of the pay-per-view. And it's one of those instances that I usually just skip over whenever I'm watching, or if I'm watching live, I just kind of, you know, that's when I go get my beer or go get more snacks.
This was a bit of a time filler because it took quite a bit. They had a pretty long list of guys they wanted to bring out, but I mean, I don't think they're ever going to get away from this, from doing it at WrestleManias now, because they want to showcase some of the guys who are deserving and some of the stories, some of the guys who've really built the company. So I don't think this is ever really going to go away, but maybe the classes will go down to being a smaller size. That might be nice, but.
Yeah, instead of having, you know, 12 people being inducted, and that's what makes watching the actual Hall of Fame ceremony hard, is because, like you said, they do have so many people, and you know, each person talks for, you know, 20 to 30 minutes, some even longer. So it's hard to sit there and watch, especially if there's people that like this last year, you know, Rikishi and, you know, some of the other. It's hard to sit and watch these inductions. Right. Whenever you're really not that invested in the people to begin with.
And that's what it takes, people to be invested. I really didn't care much for the guys in the Hall of Fame induction right here. Obviously, I like Superstar Billy Graham, Slaughter, and Ventura. They were the headliners for me. But the rest of the guys, it was just a waste of time. Not that they didn't deserve it, but I mean, I'm just not that interested in sitting there watching them being paraded around.
After that promo, we have the WWE Cruiserweight Championship Open. And go ahead and sit down as I read off the list of people in this match. You had Chavo Guerrero, Nunzio, and Chavo was the champ at the time, Nunzio, Jamie Noble, Tajiri, Akio, Funaki, Shannon Moore, Ultimo Dragon, Billy Kidman, and Rey Mysterio. Whew, let me take a breath after that.
Right?
So, yeah. And it's an interesting concept, you know. They built it up as like, oh, this is the first ever, so they had plans to continue this, but it died after this. And how it happened is that you had these, I believe, 10 individuals. There was 10. They all drew random numbers. It started off with 2 in the ring. Once someone got pinned, the next person came in. So it just kept going until there was only 2 people left, and then last man standing is your cruiserweight champion. And it was an interesting concept. I enjoyed it. And a lot of these guys were really talented, and they put on a pretty good show. Now, some of them, like Nunzio, Akio, were just shouldn't have been in there, but whatever. It's WrestleMania. You got to put in as many people as you can in these matches.
Yeah, half of these guys were not that talented in the ring. Half of them were extremely talented in the ring. So we were bound to get maybe a little bit of slow pace if some of these guys were to mix it up in the ring. But then again, some of the pace was really going to quicken when you see a dude like Ultimo Dragon or Kidman in there to really pick up the pace. And that's really what we got. Most of the match was pretty exciting, though.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up those two. I loved Ultimo Dragon, as a kid. He was one of me and my brother's favorite wrestlers. Kidman and Noble were also pretty underrated, and I can't help but wonder that if Kidman was in his prime now, I feel like he would be feuding with Rollins, and they'd be putting on 4 and 5 star matches left and right.
Yeah, Kidman can do literally everything. Aside from having like an extensive background in kicks and crap, he could do everything besides that, and he probably would. That'd be a great matchup.
Yeah, he hit that shooting star press on the outside on top of
from the top rope.
Yeah, and that was absolutely insane. Like you said, he could do it all, and he was a big cruiserweight.
Yeah, he was a big.
That's why I think. Yeah, that's why I think nowadays he would be wrestling with the big boys. He'd be wrestling with Rollins and Ambrose and those kind of guys. Instead, he's sitting at gorilla position, helping call matches.
Right, but thank God he is, because he's a great technician.
Absolutely.
He's a smart in-ring worker, and he has been since early WCW when he was a kid doing stuff like that. So it's great that he's a part of the creative down there, and I hope he can stay there, because SmackDown has been working since the brand split. And if it's Billy Kidman a part of it, then let it keep going.
And I'm glad you brought up his WCW days. He was in the Ravens flock, and his gimmick was that he never showered. So, and his finishing move, his shooting star press, was called the 7-year itch.
7-year itch. That's right.
Yeah. So
it worked.
I'm glad you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to add that there were some pretty good spots in here. Most of the match was entertaining. We saw great cruiserweight work, just like we should, from Dragon and Mysterio, and even Jamie Noble put on some stuff in there. But the guys like Akio and Funaki and Shannon Moore and Nunzio, they were just there as fillers to make the match go a little bit longer. And it ended up with a Chavo victory using his dad to heal himself over. Chavo Sr. And he took a spot from Rey Mysterio also. Mysterio
spot. Oh my
goodness. He jumped over Charles Robinson outside of the ring, and he caught him. Thank God he caught him. And
that was a close one. Chavo Sr. had to kind of run up to catch it.
But it was a good spot that they worked, and Chavo cheated to win, as you'd expect a guy like Chavo to do. I was okay with him winning like that, like a Guerrero to do. I was okay with him winning because he was pretty good as a heel guy in the cruiserweight land back then. So I was okay with it. Rey Mysterio gets his push, so you can't say he was held down from that.
No, and this match had a lot of great action. It was pretty fun. It was the smart choice to give Chavo the win and kind of give it in a underhanded way, because that doesn't, when you lose like that, it doesn't really take away from any momentum. So Rey Mysterio didn't really go down at all. He didn't really lose any momentum. He just became a more sympathetic figure, and the match that he put on and the stuff that he was doing put him over even more. So
I loved Rey.
All in all, I loved his Flash outfit he was wearing.
He was the Flash when he came out. That's right.
That was fantastic. But it was a great match. Well, great for what it was.
Great for what it was, yeah. Really good as expected, and a good win for Chavo. So you guys noticed that we had the win there for Chavo. We did skip over the women's evening gown match, the Playboy evening gown match with Tori Miss Jackie, Stacy Keibler, Sable. Sure, they were hot, but this was fucking disgusting. Novelty items at best, used for sex appeal to sell. Vince McMahon, you're good at what you do, so keep doing it. Damn it, Vince moment. The match was... It wasn't a match. I'm not going to call it a match. It was just a piece of entertainment. So if you don't mind, folks, don't kill us for that one, but we're moving on to Brock Lesnar and Goldberg.
Which is probably another match we should skip, but you can't help but talk about this match when talking about WrestleMania 20.
Right, and I want to pose this question to you real quick because
okay, go on.
Picture this: had they not added the extra piece of Stone Cold Steve Austin into this match, and it was simply Lesnar versus Goldberg with the same type of lead up, but without Stone Cold at all, the match would not have mattered whatsoever. Do you agree with that or no?
Well. Here's the thing. During that match, there was a lot of different chants, like "You sold out,"
Yep.
"Nah, hey, goodbye," kind of stuff happening,
Right.
And that would have happened, like you said, either way. Having Stone Cold there is the only reason why this match even, I don't know, like existed, because Stone Cold was the only positive that happened in this match. Because when absolutely nothing was going on, when they were having 40-second collar elbow tie-ups,
Yep.
Stone Cold was the only thing that kept any kind of interest at all. At all.
Right. This is when people would have left to go get food, because unless they were sitting there ready to go chant at Lesnar, na goodbye, and talk crap to him, they still wanted to see Stone Cold. So even though Stone Cold wasn't a full-time wrestler, he was still obviously a great piece of selling, like a great device to sell with, and Vince would use him. And that's the only reason I think people watched this match, because the match was still very enticing, because both these guys were really good, big, huge dudes that were good in the ring. But no one
they just didn't care at all about this. Like either of them just put on they spent about the first 3 minutes just walking around staring at each other.
Because they didn't know what to do.
Exactly. Then they would have minute long test of strength, collar and elbow tie-ups, where they would just kind of stand there. One person would push someone 2 steps back, the other one would push them back, and then they would break up, make a face at each other, and do it again. Like it was absolute trash. Even when they started doing moves, it was trash.
You're right. It's a great way to say it. Part of this was Brock Lesnar, and he still does this to this day. He won't go over match work with anybody prior to a match. This is what he did with Goldberg. They didn't talk about, aside from the ending, they didn't talk about what was going to happen. So that's why the beginning was very awkward and weird, because neither of them had discussed or wanted to discuss how the match was going to work. And this is exactly what we got. We got random ass test of strength, and we got this awkward amount of pause in between before they started the actual match.
And I feel the worst for JR and King, because they tried their best to put this thing over. JR tried so many times to be like, oh well, they're just so evenly matched, and King would be like, oh, they must be scared to try and they don't want to make a mistake or something. It was like if I had to give this match a rating on the Dave Meltzer 5-star scale,
there you go.
It would be a negative 25 star match.
All right, pretty well said.
Okay, that's good.
I think we all knew Goldberg was going to win it, though, because Lesnar leaving the way he was, it was very well known, even though there wasn't a lot of social media it wasn't around as much as back then, so we didn't know the whole story, but even general fans knew that Brock Lesnar was leaving. That's why you saw a lot of the chants. So Goldberg winning, although it really didn't matter, was the best move. I thought it was fine that he speared him and jackhammered him and ended it, and then Austin gets the last word on both of them in the end, which I think was at least saving grace to keep this match somewhat interesting, but even at that point it was too late.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. Austin giving everyone a stunner, and all is forgotten. That pretty much put the Band-Aid on the open wound that was the Brock Lesnar-Goldberg match.
Right.
Which is why I find it so surprising that people are clamoring so hard for a second Lesnar-Goldberg match.
I mean, some fans are gonna love it, some are gonna hate it. I do think it's still enticing because it's gonna sell. Because I mean, I do want the picture. I want to see them standing across the face from each other in the ring, and maybe they'll fix what they didn't do, and we'll get something good. But I mean, Goldberg's too old now to put on any kind of type of 20-minute match.
No, you're right, and I can't help but think that this is just going to be another Lesnar squash match. The way they've booked Lesnar, these last few years.
Yeah.
So.
Not if this leads to Goldberg going into the Hall of Fame next year. He's not going to lose like that, but it could easily be something along those lines with a weird ending like we saw at SummerSlam.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. He's definitely going to go into the Hall of Fame in the next year or two.
Mm-hmm.
He might get one more WrestleMania match coming up and then go into the Hall of Fame, or this could very well be his last match like he's claiming it will be.
Yeah.
But he's saying that he wants to try and, he wants to see how this match plays out and then kind of decide from there.
Yeah,
so
and it takes more time than what we have right now to see if he's going to be anything more than a one-time match, and that match might not even be good, but we'll see at Survivor Series.
Yeah. Moving on, thankfully, from this match.
Yes, on to the next.
Vince McMahon comes out. He was still a major heel at the time, but he definitely comes out, breaks character, and just to thank the WWE fans for making WrestleMania what it is today. And it was definitely a classy move from him, entirely out of character. He wanted to come out and show his appreciation to the fans that made WWE what it is. Without the fans, WWE doesn't win the Monday Night War. WrestleMania is not as big as it is and was at the time. So this was definitely a very classy move by Vince.
I definitely liked it. Liked that he broke character and spoke some real words. The timing was a little bit weird. The center of the card before the Fatal 4-Way. I kind of thought it would have been better if he would have let off with it. It could have been a little bit better to build up the match a little bit and kind of would have made the crowd clap and get a little more excited. But nonetheless, it was still really nice to see him do it.
Yeah, and then after that, we do have the second tag team match for the tag team championships for SmackDown. And you have the world's greatest tag team which was Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, the APA, the Basham brothers, and Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty, who were the champions at the time.
Yeah, this is towards the end of the APA and their actual tag team runs, because we know JBL goes on, does some good individual stuff after this.
He becomes JBL and wins the title just 3 months later.
Yep, so it was good that they didn't win the titles, obviously, but we see good stuff from him. The Basham brothers, I think Doug and Danny, or Doug and Dave?
Yes.
Maybe I'm thinking
Doug and Danny.
Of Busted Open.
It was Doug. Yeah, that's Doug and Dave.
Okay.
No, it was Doug and Danny. Yeah, you were right the first time.
Okay, so they're in here as a filler. The world's greatest tag team, they were amazing. Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas, they were great.
So athletic.
So athletic, and the stable with them and Kurt was amazing. Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty here, both of them not great in the ring individually. They were super over just because they were so charismatic.
Just like we've talked about before, Scotty 2 Hotty, he was definitely very over with the crowd just because they're ridiculous. That was the great thing about Too Cool, especially with Rikishi, is that it was ridiculous. They were crazy. They did, the dancing they did was, it was fun.
They were good forms
a
of
fun
entertainment.
team. Yeah. This match was definitely not as good as the first tag match. But man, one of the best spots was the clothesline that Bradshaw gave. I don't remember who he gave it to, but God, he took their head off. Like literally, I think their head was flopping around.
They had Bradshaw go into one of his power up moments where I think he hits the last call fall away slam outside the ring on somebody, and then it's one of the Bashams that gets him into a corner and tries to run against him. But then he does his takeoff and runs against the rope and then hits the giant clothesline from hell. I've always loved the clothesline from hell. God. That dude took it well. I don't know. I couldn't tell the Bashams apart from each other, but one of them got destroyed. But this match wasn't that exciting. I mean, this was a lot of ring veterans. You see both the APA guys, Rikishi, Scotty, these guys who had been around for a bit. The Bashams were just a mid-card team. And then you had the world's greatest tag team, Benjamin and Hayes and Haas. They were great, but I mean the matchup here wasn't great for them to kind of show up and put on a show. They couldn't really build a great match with this, I think.
No, and like you said, the Bashams, I don't even think they were mid card. I think they were more lower card tag team, and just like with the first one, you don't expect the champs to drop the titles.
No,
and really this entire pay-per-view, there weren't a lot of title changes.
There were not.
Think about it. I think there was only one.
There was only one, yeah.
Yeah. But it was just like you said, like we've said this entire show, is that there was a lot of filler, and this
Mm-hmm.
was definitely filler. You know, you have 14. It was definitely shorter. Rikishi won by just dropping his butt on Danny.
Yeah,
So the
his
Bashers took
version of the bonsai drop. Yeah,
the seated splash.
right. And this one
Uh,
was over pretty quick.
yeah, which it was good to be over. This is not one of those matches you want to be 10 minutes long. You know,
No,
5 minutes, get a couple spots in, and then afterwards they do their dance.
which I love.
So yeah, Rikishi does ridiculous things. Neither one of them can dance well, so it's just it's bad.
They're just forms of entertainment, but we like them anyway.
Yeah. Next segment is another filler segment, but it's Jesse. Jesse Ventura comes out and he goes, "Oh, what kind of WrestleMania would it be without Jesse Ventura coming out and interviewing someone?"
Yeah, right.
And it's I don't know, maybe every single one of them before.
Right. This because this had never happened before or since.
Yeah, yeah. So, but he comes out and I think this is apropos for what's going on now in
This
the
is
world.
perfect timing that we did this.
Yes, he interviews Donald Trump at ringside and requests
President-elect.
Trump. Yeah, well, not at the time, just
Not at the
billionaire.
time, but today, yeah.
Yeah, interviews him and asks him to help with Jesse Ventura's 2008 presidential run that never happened.
He did not run for president that year.
No, he did not. Never happened.
Oh man.
So that was great. And of course, Trump is like, well, I'm a billionaire. Whatever.
Yeah, quite political with his answer.
Yeah, I'm gonna shave Vince's head in a few years.
Yeah, you guys will see. And I'm going to take a stunner, but not take it well.
I'm gonna take the worst stunner you've ever seen. You think Vince takes a bad stunner?
Well, Linda McMahon took the worst one, but his is a close second.
Maybe we could do a show on who takes the best and worst stunners.
Oh man, we'd have
That's
a long
actually
list.
a pretty good topic. Write that one down.
Okay,
Write that down.
Scott Hall takes the best stunner ever. Okay.
No, The Rock. The Rock takes
Well,
the
Rock
best stunner.
would sell. I think you'd argue for Santino Morella, but we're getting off topic.
And Santino sighting. I love it.
Anyway,
yes, we're
so
getting
Donald
way
fails.
off topic.
Yeah, Donald gets his little words in.
President
Ventura
elect
goes back, and we finally get to move on to the next match. But when I say finally, I mean regretfully.
Yeah, you go on and take this. I kind of want to just zone out right now.
Okay, and I'd like to too, but for the sake of it being the woman's title, Molly Holly versus Victoria. She's the champion. Neither of them were. Molly was not good in the ring, regardless. Victoria
wasn't that good.
She was not that good, but she wasn't bad. So
no, you're right. For the time,
that's what we're getting right here when I describe this for the women's championship, and it's since obviously much better increased now. We see great women's matches, but this one was not. This was a title versus hair match. I hated it. It leads into the next match. I hate it. Victoria wins. That's all I'm going to say. Molly's going to get her head shaved, and here we go.
I'm so glad you brought up that it led into the next match. We don't get a high quality WWE production. You know, we don't get a great, here's the lead
nice
up, here's the story. Yeah, no video package. What we get is Molly Holly's getting her head shaved, and then Kurt Angle's music hits. Are you freaking kidding me? You're gonna have two of the best of all time. Don't get the decency of getting any kind of video package. You're just gonna have them come out while Molly Holly's getting her head shaved. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm losing my mind right now. Just thinking,
as you should be.
Losing my mind.
Molly gets taken up the ramp. She gets forced into the barber's chair, and they begin cutting her hair, and it takes a long time. And the match fades away. We get, I think, a cut back to the commentators, and then all they say is...
it just Kurt's music hits.
Okay, so there is no cutback. But I mean, they introduce the title and say the match is next, and then we see the Angle swing over back to the ramp, and who do we see? Still getting her fucking haircut. And then Kurt Angle's music hits, and I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to do that. And good. I mean, the match obviously saved this segment because it was going to be great anyway, but I want that video package. I want to relive Kurt Angle talking his trash, saying he's going to bring the title back from a drug addict and Eddie Guerrero. I want all that because I need it, but we didn't get it. But we get them both coming down to the ring, and thank God the match was great.
Yeah, and the announcers had to bring up a lot of the build during the match, which, kind of takes away,
Which shouldn't
from the
happen.
action. No, not at all. Like, you should know what's going on beforehand.
Hmm.
It absolutely blew my mind that they didn't do that one. So it's just a shame that they didn't get that video package and we got to see that damn haircut.
Yeah.
Anyway, these are the two of the best of all time. Kurt Angle is absolutely top 10, one of the best entertainers and wrestlers of all time. Eddie is one of the best ring technicians also of all time.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of great mat work in this match. Uh, it was great. We got the precursor to the. I don't know if you noticed this. There was a precursor to the "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks" with the "Let's go Angle, Angle sucks" chants.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that this was a slow, methodical match, just how I like it. I love this style of wrestling.
Yeah.
You got a slow build, and then it's strong, fast finish. A lot of stuff happens at the end, but it's a slow build towards it, so you get more emotionally invested into it.
Right. This match could have been the main event match because it is main event quality. Obviously, it's the WWE Championship with two great guys. They tell a story in the ring, which you want in every high caliber match, and these two are two of the best at doing it. They're both great technicians. Eddie was super over. Kurt Angle was still super over, even though he was a heel, because you can't really hate Kurt Angle that much, regardless. But this match, it delivered exactly how you want a championship match to go at a WrestleMania.
Exactly, and throughout the match, Kurt was working on Eddie's midsection. I love, just like with the Christian working on Jericho's knee. I love when wrestlers, tell that kind of story where
Isolate
one
a body
guy,
part.
Exactly, old school wrestling. This beats that flippy shit any day, and you know how I feel about that flippy shit.
Yeah, I don't want to get you started on a tangent because we'll go off on
Okay.
that one. But this one had good kickouts too. When Eddie hit the frog splash,
Yes,
even though I didn't think the match was going to be over, I kind of bought it for a second. I was disbelief kind of sucked me in, and Kurt Angle did a nice kick out on that one, which kept the match going a little bit longer.
yeah, I wrote that down. That the kick out after the frog splash definitely had me going. But the best part, Angle starts working on the ankle, starts doing the ankle lock,
Yeah.
and then Eddie unties his boot.
Love it.
Absolutely, I love it. Like, this is how Eddie Guerrero should win
Every match.
every match. Unties his boot. Angle's trying to do the ankle lock, and Eddie's kicking his foot, kicking that boot off,
Yeah.
and then it comes off, and he rolls him up and gets the win. And you think, usually if it was any other match, any other people, you think, just like with the Jericho Christian match, how I didn't really like the ending. This was the perfect ending for these two, because that's just how Eddie Guerrero was.
I want Eddie Guerrero to win every match in a dirty, cheating way, and I want him to be a face when he does it every time, because this was great. This was a very specific type of cheating, but not necessarily cheating, just doing it dirty by taking his boot off, and he played it so well. Him and Kurt lock eyes when he pushes Kurt out of the ring, and Kurt's running back in, and you see Eddie's mouth kind of go, "Oh shit." And he tries to squirm away, but it's all planned,
Yeah.
and then
He
grabs
sticks
his ankle.
he sticks his foot out there to oh no, don't get my foot.
Oh, and then he shoves it off, and Kurt kind of stumbles a bit, and Eddie leans up a little bit, and Kurt, while holding the boot, runs right into I think he gets in with a small package.
Small package, yeah.
And it's not a quick count, but I mean the whole momentum is so quick, and it's over like that. And Kurt is so frustrated, still holding the boot, and he does his Kurt Angle kind of cry face, and Eddie's just shaking his chest, and oh my god, I want to watch it again just to see that ending.
And that was probably the quickest, fastest, most athletic small package I've ever seen. I'm pretty
Super
sure they
quick,
both
right?
got off the ground, and I'm pretty sure there was impact on it. That's how he got the that should be a finishing move.
Yeah, you
That
can
was
tell that
strong impact.
they'd probably worked on it a couple times before then to hit it so quickly, because it was so perfect the way it was. And for Kurt to hold on to the boot, man, I don't know why I love that part so
was
much,
great.
but it
No,
was
you
over.
have every right to love that part.
And Kurt is so frustrated, but Kurt, he can put anybody over. Not that Eddie needed over at this point because he was great, but Eddie winning here was amazing. Just a really good match.
They had a plan for this pay-per-view, the finishes for it, and
Yeah.
it worked out to perfection.
Oh man, now I'm gonna watch it again just because I need to. But
And the only thing that that bothers me, and the only thing that kind of took away from that match and then the main event is that the match before it,
Yeah.
Kane versus Undertaker, was just not a very good match.
No,
It was nothing more than a squash. It was a glorified squash match just to reintroduce, the dead man gimmick.
Yeah,
That's
and
all
we,
it was.
we got our video package. We got a really good video package for this one. But
It was a good one, but where was the one for Kurt Angle and Eddie
right,
Guerrero?
but this match should be bumped down one more spot. But it was for The Undertaker, I think, kind of deserving to be higher on the card type mentality with these two. Undertaker being reintroduced, like you said, but we get a really good package. We get probably his best WrestleMania entrance with this one. I love this one where he walks through the flames. But the match was an extended squash. We knew The Undertaker was going to win, and they both got in a couple of their signature high-profile moves. And I don't know. Kane stayed frustrated throughout the match because The Undertaker's not literally dead. I guess he expected him to be literally dead.
Because he buried him alive. If I got buried alive, I'd be dead.
Right, but we live in the world where The Undertaker can't die.
This is true. To be fair to both of these guys, they were both in tremendous shape. This was probably the best shape Taker was ever in.
I wrote that down because
Kane
looks amazing
too. Yes.
Yeah. But these guys both have the same type of ring style. They're both kind of good big strikers that do big power moves. So it's kind of hard for them to work great in the ring together when you don't have something opposite to go with.
They're a great tag team. They work great together. They just don't work great against each other. They've never had good matches against each other, which is a shame because they're two of the best big men to ever be there.
The best part of this whole thing was Paul Bearer for me, honestly, when he came out.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
Oh, Taker.
And the crowd kind of gave him a little pop because he was back, and then it leads to, I guess, the whole entrance scene is probably the best part of this. But we see a choke slam, and we see a tombstone, and we see a 1, 2, 3, and The Undertaker remains undefeated at WrestleMania 20.
Yes. And then finally, we come up to probably the best lead-in and the best video package of all the match. The build to this match was absolutely stunning. You had Triple H. It's the triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Triple H, the champ, going up against Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit. And up to this point, Shawn Michaels has been scratching and clawing, trying to win that. He's come so close to winning the championship, and but Chris Benoit won the Royal Rumble, and he decided he's going to leave SmackDown, come over to Raw to go after the World Heavyweight Championship. And Chris Benoit became the second person to start at number 1 and win the Royal Rumble.
Right.
Shawn Michaels was the other one. And so he decides he's going to come to Raw, challenge for the Heavyweight Championship. However, at the time, Shawn Michaels was like, no, I'm so close. This is my match. He actually, during the contract signing, super kicks him and signs his own name in. And that's how it led into becoming a triple threat match.
Yeah, and this started out, I think at this point with Triple H and Shawn Michaels, they had already gone one-on-one several times prior to this, to include the Rumble. And I think the fans, even though they were still invested in Shawn Michaels, I mean, they were kind of tired of seeing these two kind of go at it. That's why Benoit was so over. They were so invested in Chris Benoit showing up into the World Heavyweight scene because he was a new face for it. And they didn't want to see Michaels and Triple H anymore. So him coming in and winning the Rumble the way he did, especially going 60-plus minutes, that was a feat. That's a great Rumble. But it kind of added the kind of can he win aspect to the match, which I thought was very good. And this video package was great. It led up to it. And the whole build was very good. And to build a match that we expected to be great, and it turned out to be one of them. And I want to plug this also, that at the time, right after this match, IGN voted this the number 2 greatest match in WrestleMania history, only behind Stone Cold versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13. Obviously, those rankings have changed a bit since then. We've seen a couple great matches, but at the time, this was number 2 ever in WrestleMania, and I kind of agree with it.
This was absolutely a 5-star match. I wish the scale was even higher, because I'd give this match even higher. It was a fantastic match, a fantastic build, and like you said, they were getting tired of seeing Shawn Michaels versus Triple H, week in, week out, pay-per-view in, pay-per-view out. yeah, Shawn Michaels was still very over as a face, but bringing in Chris Benoit, that new blood, he was very over throughout the entire match. You heard Benoit chants,
It was Benoit
because
chance, yep.
yeah, because the fans knew his journey, and WWE did a great job building up. Like, hey, he's been plugging away. He's been doing this for 18 years. This is, he's finally getting his shot. And when WWE does that, you kind of expect, like, okay, Chris Benoit, I'm pretty sure is going to win this match.
Right, but you're still left with that little bit, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, because it's Triple H, and at the time, Triple H just didn't lose.
No, he didn't. But maybe they're like, they could have pulled Shawn Michaels finally getting over here in Triple H, or Triple H could have retained. This match had just enough disbelief, but we're still leaning towards Benoit, but you couldn't really commit to it.
And there was quite a few moments in this match where you were like, well, this is where HBK is going to win, set up perfectly for an HBK win. Then, this is set up Triple H. Oh, I can't believe they're going to have Triple H win, set up perfectly for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, there were a couple moments where Benoit had the crossface on Shawn Michaels, and you're like, Benoit's going to win right here. There were so many near falls, so many close calls, and just a lot of really good action in this match.
The match really
start to finish, including the entrances. Triple H he has a great entrance. All the entrances were great for all three of them.
This match never really stopped. I think from when it started off, because I mean they all go one-on-one with each other at some point where everyone's getting an advantage, and then someone else is getting the advantage, and then someone's really down and out because Benoit goes through a table. You see Shawn Michaels selling a whole bunch of blood on his face from the ring post. From Triple H.
Yeah, he bladed he bladed a little hardcore there because his face was dark. It was dark red. Yeah, I was scared.
He sold it well though, but the biggest pop of the night, the entire show goes to the sharpshooter when Chris Benoit puts it on Triple H, and the crowd, because it was believable that Benoit could win by submission. You were believing that this match,
no matter what the submission was,
win by submission. He could win by the sharpshooter. So when he put it on Triple H when Michaels was out of the ring, it was one of those moments where this is going to be it. It's going to be it, and it doesn't end like that. But the crowd bought it, and I bought it too.
Yeah, there was both times when Benoit had Triple H, you thought for sure he was going to tap, and then there was that one time where he had Shawn Michaels, and Shawn went to tap to the crossface, but Triple H jumped in and grabbed his arm and stopped him from tapping.
Yeah, I truly thought the match was going to be over when Benoit throws Michaels over the top rope when he goes for the super kick, and then standing in the middle of the ring is Triple H waiting for Benoit to turn around and to set up a pedigree. Yes. And I was at that point watching it for the first time. I thought that was going to be a good ending because it was a good setup for Triple H to win like that. And he turns it into the damn crossface, and then the crowd's like, well, time to cheer for this because it's about to be over.
And then he gets so close to the rope, and then Benoit flips him over, gets him into the middle of the ring, and that's when you knew this is happening.
It really was happening. Triple H sold it a little bit, trying to resist a little bit, and he held it long enough, and then, my dear God, he tapped out.
He did tap out, and the place went bananas, and JR loses his mind and his voice at the end of this match.
He is the world heavyweight champion of this world. Was his line, and anything
best of all time.
Yeah, JR can say anything, and he could put anybody over, as we say in every episode. It's kind of
he can put a piece of wet moldy bread over.
I think that this tap out too, and this is an arguable point that we can talk about, but as far as like major tap outs and major pay-per-views and major title wins, aside from Daniel Bryan has a great one, but this is one of the best ever, if not the best ever, especially for the moment that it was for Chris Benoit, because we don't see a lot of tap outs in major events like this.
No, and you're right, and I think the two best, 1 and 2, is Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30 and Chris Benoit at WrestleMania 20. And Daniel Bryan had his yes lock was very similar to Chris Benoit's crossface, and I think they turned that triple threat match. They really, 10 years later, they tried to duplicate what they had with the Benoit win at 20 and kind of replace it with the Daniel Bryan win at 30. And this is going to be very debatable what I'm about to say, but I think as great as the call that JR made at WrestleMania 20, I think Michael Cole's call at WrestleMania 30 is just a little bit better.
Yep,
Because
and you're biased.
the problem with, well, I am, but the problem with the one at 20 is that, you know, when he rolled over Triple H to get that final crossface in, Triple H, you know, JR starts, you know, yelling and screaming, getting excited, but it lasted a little too long. Like, I think
Right.
Triple H should have tapped a little sooner than what he did.
Okay.
However, you know, I'm nitpicking here. It was, you know, a 5-star moment. You know.
So this match was, I think, worthy of the IGN voting at number 2. Since then, it's probably changed, but you can easily say this is a 5-star, one of the greatest, top 5, whatever you want to call it, greatest matches ever, not only at a WrestleMania, and an even bigger moment for a guy like Benoit, who easily deserved this. That 18-year journey was real. It wasn't just storyline. This was real shit that he'd gone through, and he deserved this title. And the moment is even better when Eddie Guerrero comes out. I know you love that part.
Oh,
And
that was just an amazing
really,
part.
yeah, it pulls on the emotions, not only as just being a wrestling fan, but they kind of suck you in emotionally and say, wow, that was real. He actually won after all this time.
Yeah, and then after, I don't know if you noticed, but after Triple H tapped, Benoit just laid there face down in the mat, and you can see the emotion. You could see him crying.
Yeah, he
you
was
just
crying.
see it all
Yeah.
just pouring out of him. And then when, like you said, when Eddie comes out, that just was the second best moment of the night after Triple H tapping. And then they embrace in the ring, and it was a fantastic moment. The only thing that would have made that moment even better is if, you know, Eddie would have come in as the challenger and won the title. They both would have won the title that night.
Right.
But either way, they were both champions. Eddie comes out, you know, starts clapping for him, and then they embrace in the middle of the ring. And it was, at the time, it was the best WrestleMania moment of all time.
Yeah, it really was.
Biasly until Daniel Bryan, of course, but that's just, you know how I feel about that.
When they hug in the center of the ring, you could see Benoit, like, you know, convulsing with crying, with emotion, like he's actually shaking because he probably can't believe that it's actually happened, and it's just real tears are coming from him, and then he stands up on the top rope and shows off the world title, and it's just one of those great scenes that it's just, I mean, it's etched in my memory now, and it's great.
Really, this there's about 2 or 3 matches that make the entire card, you know, stand out and make it a great. It makes it a great pay-per-view. There was entirely too much filler. There were a few, you know, stinkers of a match, which you have to expect in such a long show. But the Eddie Guerrero win, the Chris Benoit win, and just the quality of those matches make this card, you know, one of the top, you know, maybe top 5 WrestleManias of all time, with one of the top, if not the top WrestleMania moment of all time.
Yeah, this will go down as being one that could have been so much better, but it was so good. Even with saying that, there were a couple matches that really held it together, and thank God they were on this card because it was so long. But it's the WWE trying to get, you know, as much as they can out of this, and they did. They got a lot of guys some screen time, but some of the matches just weren't worth watching. But there were a couple of them on here that you go back and watch again and again and again because they were just so good.
You know, WWE doesn't always get it right, but by God, when the WWE gets it right,
when they do,
it is absolutely, it stays with you forever. It's one of those things that you just never forget.
Yeah, and this is the stuff that makes me
moments.
watch. Exactly, this is what makes me watch, is for moments like this. I can deal with watching some crap every now and then if I know that eventually it's going to lead to a 5-star match, because that 5-star match will keep me watching the next day for the next one. And this is one of those things. I'll deal with watching this 5-hour-long card to see John Cena get a good win, and then to see Eddie Guerrero win dirty, and then to see the raw emotion that Chris Benoit draws from winning, you know, nearly 20 years of a career to finally win the World Heavyweight title. This is what makes me watch as a wrestling fan.
Exactly, and even, you know, nowadays, you know, some more recent examples, you know, you put through, or you put up with the build for Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, and they put on a match that they shouldn't have put on as good of a match as they did, but they did, and then you have the Seth Rollins moment, which made it even more amazing. And that, like you said, that's why we watch. You know, people make fun of us for watching, but you sit there and you watch a good card, you watch great matches like this, and people who aren't even wrestling fans will get emotionally invested into it.
Right. Real emotion, man. It's a real drama.
It is, and that's what makes it such a great medium, and what makes it such a great show to watch is when they do it right. You get sucked in and you feel the emotion, and that's what makes it such compelling television to watch.
Yes, all in all, I think it was good that we picked this one because, I mean, there were some clunkers in here, but to be able to talk about some of the real emotion and some of the real stuff in this, it was a good decision. We picked this one.
Yeah, at first I wasn't too thrilled whenever you brought up the idea, but I'm glad we did finally decide on it, and I've definitely turned the tide and been swayed in your direction with the quality.
Oh, good, finally.
Yeah, for once you've swayed me. For once you've made me see your side of the story.
Ah, damn it, Vince, though.
I know there was some damn it Vince moments for sure, but all in all, they got everything right. Once again, thanks for joining us here at the Collar and Elbow Wrestling Podcast, doing our paper review of WrestleMania 20. There were some great matches. We had some great discussions. All in all, I'm glad we talked about it. How, as a whole, WWE once again got it right at the grandest stage of them all. If you feel that we missed out on something, or you have a topic you want us to talk about, or maybe another pay-per-view you feel that we should review, go ahead and let us know in the comments section below. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Find us on Facebook, and where we can have some good discussion, talk about pro wrestling, and also check us out on Twitter at C&E Wrestling. Once again, this has been Collar and Elbow Wrestling, and we'll see you next time.